Hello and welcome to episode 111 of Writing in the Weeds. We are here today. We're going to talk about magic numbers or signs, considering the fact that this is 111, and we're pretty excited that we're here at 111. And we're really grateful that you're here listening with us today. So thank you for being here. If you're new, I am Natasha Lucky. I am a business builder. I help people create better systems so that they can reach their perfect clients and build their business, whether that's getting you signed up to something like Calendly where you can book appointments, or putting your course into a system, setting up funnels, all of that fun stuff. So it's for you to do what you do well, and I'll take care of the rest. I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Ginny, who I will let introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. If you are having challenges in your pet relationship, or are struggling with behavior or emotional issues, or would like to know more about your pet's perspective on life, that's a great reason to have a session together.
Awesome. So signs. What kind of
Yeah.
signs do we have out there? What ones should we listen to? What ones shouldn't we listen to? What's the reality?
Yeah. I love triple numbers,
You
quadruple,
see them
or
all the time.
whatever. Yeah, I love seeing repeating numbers. I think it's fun. My boyfriend and I have a game of like texting each other at 111 and like 123 and stuff like that. But sometimes we'll schedule them for each other, which is hilarious. But it's just a little sort of like, hey, thinking about you, I love you. So it's a game we play together. But I don't follow any sort of like 111 means this specific thing. I'm too lazy to look up a meaning around that. If I see things repeatedly, that is really what tells me I need to go check in on whatever it is. For me, it's often animals. It's often the way animals show up. And I have a couple stories around this that I think are really cool. So when I first learned to look for messages from animals, I was working with a lady who I'm still friends with now, and we kind of decided the only reason that she came to work for the company I was working for at the time was so that we could meet each other. And she really opened the door for a lot of my spiritual journey. And I came into the office one day and I told her, I was like, oh my God, I've seen a fox every day for the last 2 weeks. And she's like, well, did you bother to look up the message or something? And I was like, no, I didn't know you could do that. And she was like, yeah. So she had the book Animals Speak by Ted Andrews. And the next day she brought the book in and copied the pages for me from the Fox entry. And I was like, holy shit, that is spot on for where I'm at right now, the things I'm going through, and the information that I didn't know I need was right there. And so from there, I learned that it's whenever I see things repeatedly and or in an unusual way that I need to pay attention. The second big message that came through after that was herons. And I do live in Maryland along the Chesapeake Bay, so it's not uncommon to see a lot of animals like that. We have a lot of wildlife in the area. But I saw 14 herons in one day driving to and from my office job, which I do drive along a river and then through one of the reservoirs in the area. That was my route to work every day. And I saw 14 in one day. That's out of the ordinary. One or two, sure. 14, that's crazy. So I immediately told my coworker, I was like, hey, can I have the heron information, please? And again, the messages were spot on for exactly where I was. And that's how I've started viewing it, is I just keep my eyes open and my awareness open for what is something that's unusual. And it doesn't have to be actual real animals. You could see pictures of animals, or you could see articles about an animal, or even scrolling. If you suddenly start seeing these videos about whales and you've never seen videos about whales before, and you've never interacted with videos of whales, then maybe you should go look and see what the message might be for you, because maybe there's a message there. Maybe not. But to me, whenever I see something unusual, that's what piques my curiosity. And so I go pull my book out, or sometimes I'll Google. If there's nothing in my book, I'll go Google I don't like doing that as much because there's a lot of kind of goofy stuff. And the last piece of that is sitting down and meditating on it and seeing if anything comes through. A hummingbird showed up at my office window the other day, and I have two feeders. The birds are in migration, so it's normal to see a lot of them, but my feeders are way over on the other side of the house, and she came and hovered in front of the window. And I was like, okay, point taken, I'll clean the feeders and refill them for you, but also, why are you at my window? And so I sat down and meditated, and the message that came through was, again, perfect for the moment in my life and was very helpful for where I was at. And so paying attention, I think, is how we see these things, how they appear. And if we're willing to look and then receive the message, as soon as I have gotten the message, like foxes and herons, as soon as I got that message, they were not there anymore. I wasn't seeing them like I had seen them. And so that's how I know, like, okay, I got the information.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in there, and one of them is, you summed it up quite well at the end there, like awareness. When we're paying attention, we see things. And if you were to set your timer or your alarm for every day at 1:10, you would probably see 1:11 every day. Would that mean that it had any sort of meaning? Probably not, because you were intentionally looking, well, not even intentionally looking for it, but you were actually creating the circumstances in which to see it. If you go whale watching and see lots of whales,
Yeah.
like, should you go home and look up whales and I'm obviously being spoken to by the whales? Maybe not. However, when we're just aware of our surroundings, and I'll look down and be like, oh, look, it's 1:11. And the fact that I looked at my phone, or didn't even look at my phone, I just looked and my phone happened to be in my vision and it just happened to be 1:11. That's when I think the synchronicities start to come in. And I think, as you said, right, like seeing that many herons, like, yeah, you live somewhere where there's lots of herons, but there were so many of them and you noticed them. You might not have noticed them. You might have actually been so focused on the road that you might not have seen any of them. And I think that's the interesting part of this conversation. Last year, I went home for a event, and I was driving our super old van, and I happened to look down and see, like, on the way to go wherever we were going, I was like, oh my God, we are so close to hitting threes, like 333,333.33, like every single number on my dial, and maxed out numbers too. Yes, it was an old vehicle. It had gone a long way. But for the fact that I happened to have gone home, I was the one driving the vehicle. And the craziest thing, and we talked about it when it happened, but the craziest thing was that when it hit all the threes, we drove past a 33 sign.
Remember that.
It was
like, oh, better go look up threes, right?
Definitely went and looked up threes. And it was all about changing direction and that you're supported and trusting that everything's going to go where you want it to go. And we were in the middle of doing a retreat, and it was just so very special. And I think, again, like, not just awareness, but right timing, and that could have just as easily been missed. And so often things like that are totally missed, and we're not aware of what's going on, so therefore we don't see them. And you know, you can stretch it so far, but then I think the rubber band breaks at a certain point. Like, I'm going whale watching. Well, hopefully I'll see lots of whales, and that's probably not because I've got an animal totem that day of whales. Scrolling through my Instagram, I see so many of these, like, you saw this today, so therefore the person who sees this is going to attract a lot of money into their lives. Now, you could go one of two ways with this. So share it to yourself and make it real. Well, obviously, the more people that comment on it, the more people that share it, the more people will see it. Therefore, the more people are lucky enough. And part of me is like, well, I mean, maybe there's an outside chance. And the other part of me is like, this is such a scam. And Really, Instagram, this makes me not want to be here. So there's a give and take. And I think it's up to you as a person as to where you want to take it and how you want to believe it. And whatever you believe is fine.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, the numbers is more of a smile from the universe. It's kind of like looking for hearts, right? We talked about that in an episode a while ago. I love seeing heart-shaped things. I see leaves sometimes. I see rocks. I have a collection of rocks that I pick up when I see them that are kind of remotely heart-shaped because it makes me feel good, right? It's kind of like looking down and seeing that's 111. Like, it just makes me feel good. And why would I not want more of that in my life? So if I'm looking out for it, that's not a problem per se.
No.
And no, I'm not trying to force it, but it's just keeping the eyes open for stuff. I do drive a lot, so I see a lot of license plates. But what I notice is that every now and then I'll be moving around in traffic and maybe I'll get annoyed because this person won't get out of my way. And then I end up behind them and I realize their plate has triple digits. And I'm like, if I had gotten in front of them, I never would have seen that. Yeah. So it's like sometimes those little things that it's just like the universe like nudging me like, hey, chill out, relax, enjoy the ride. Like, just enjoy what you're going through. Don't take it so seriously. Have a little fun and lighten up in the moment. And I love that when that happens because I'm like, thanks. Like, thanks for the reminder. Thanks for the nudge at that point.
Well, and there is a lot of science, like the whole heart thing. The idea is that you're distracting yourself and you're learning to notice things around you that are not necessarily within your frame of mind. If you're ruminating on something that happened and you're upset by how something went, or you're lost in your mind and you're thinking thoughts that maybe aren't helpful for you, if you're out on a walk and you start looking for hearts, you've now shifted your focus from ruminating on that thing to looking for hearts. And as you say, that's going to bring joy and that's going to bring a little bit of lightness to you. And it's just switching your focus from looking at one thing to looking at another. And I was just telling Jenny before we jumped on, I recently read something that said that ruminating over things that have happened 3 months ago or just not being able to get something out of your head is actually an ADHD symptom, which I found really interesting because that's something I struggle with. And so if I do have something to focus on, like looking for hearts or looking for something else, I am less likely to need to listen to a book while I'm going for a walk and find a way to distract those thoughts. I've actually got something else to look for. Driving in traffic, if you're looking for special numbers on license plates, that's going to distract you from being annoyed at being in traffic. So much of it is just switching our awareness from one thing to another, and doing that is going to help you, right? And it allows you to see things that you may not otherwise see. And then you've got astrology, right? How much do you believe in astrology and the moon and the stars and how they align affects the energy or gives you a portal or whatever it is? If you're following somebody who's doing a lot of astrology, you start to feel like there's always a portal and there's always something happening, and in every moment there's a miraculous opportunity to manifest or do this or do that. And again, there's two ways of thinking about it. Like, maybe there always is. And it's different areas and shifting. And if you were to follow that, then, you may just enable yourself to move and quantum leap. And maybe we are in a matrix of form that is aligned by stars and stuff. And I personally, like one day I said to a friend of mine, who was like, do you really believe in the moon? And I was like, well, I tried not to believe that my period would arrive every month, but it kept happening. And the same symptoms would happen every time. And so if the moon can shift tides, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah. I mean, ask an ER doc or any first responder about the moon and see how they react. I can
Teachers,
guarantee you they're not going to have much pleasant to say about full moons in the emergency
and the
services.
right, and teachers in the classroom, same
Yeah.
thing. That'd be really interesting. Being at the campground, it's been fascinating because Ian and I, our weekends have been pretty mellow. Whereas our counterparts seem to have these weekends that are crazy. And all of these crazy things happen. They've given out fines and they've got all these weird things happening. And Ian and I are like, everyone's behaving. I'm like, maybe we're not paying enough attention. I don't know. But at the end of the day, maybe it's where the moon is.
Yeah, it very well could be. And I believe there is an element of all of that that affects everybody. There's also solar flares have a big impact on what's going on in the world, as do all sorts of other different things that shift and change. But I think it's one of those things that it doesn't even matter how much you believe in it or don't believe in it. There are impacts. Whether it's something you should dive down a rabbit hole and pursue sleepless nights over, probably not. But knowing that it's out there and knowing that it has an impact, sometimes to me, that takes a little pressure off, because if I do realize, like, oh, shoot, it's a full moon, well, that explains a lot. And it suddenly takes the pressure off of me as, like, why is everything so hard? Why do I feel like it's a struggle? Why are other people responding in ways that are surprising? So it can take a little pressure off to be aware, even remotely, of those things, even if you don't do anything necessarily with the information. But the other thing I like about signs is that we can ask for signs. And I don't play a lot with this because it is challenging. And you have to make sure that whatever you're asking for a sign in relation to is definitely in alignment. But my story around this is that when we moved, we found out we had to leave the boarding barn that we were renting, and we needed to find a new place to live in 30 days. And the boarding barn was a unicorn, as I put it. It was an amazing, ideal space. And so we quickly realized that the prices for apartments were more than what we had been paying for a whole farm. And so at this point, it was like, well, what do we do? Because we have a farm's worth of stuff. I can't fit into an apartment. I don't want to be in an apartment where I'm sharing walls and spaces and things like that. And so it was one of those situations that was a little bit miraculous. We told a random person who is a more an acquaintance than a good friend of ours. We told her. She happened to know a realtor. It was sort of a one thing led to another situation. So we were in a position to be able to buy a house with almost no money down at that point. So we're going through. The challenge was we had a very limited list of options that were on the market. It was late summer, not the ideal home buying time. And so we're not in the greatest position at this point to find something. And we had a list of criteria that we were working with. Some were more negotiable than others, but we knew what we wanted and what we didn't want. And like I said, the list of options was not long. And so I had at one point asked for an eagle as a sign. I'd like an eagle to let me know that what we found is right. So even if it doesn't seem to check all the boxes, I'll still know this is right. And so we keep viewing homes and viewing homes and viewing homes. And we were getting really close to the point where we were not going to have a home, and it was getting kind of scary. And we went to this one house, and in a pile of junk boxes in the basement, those people were not ready to move at all. House was on the market. They were not prepared to sell. And in the box, there was one of those like American bald eagle plaque things that would go on the wall, like, I don't know, artistic rendering kind of thing. And I was like, that's interesting. Maybe this is it. And I wasn't feeling great about the house, but I was like, well, maybe. But then it ended up that house got ruled out. And so I was like, okay. So I had sort of given up on it. And then we saw our house and we liked it. It checked off probably more on the list than we had had before. And so we started going through all of the process, and everything kept moving forward, and we kept going to the next step and the next step. And it was the morning of closing. We came back over to the property to do the final walkthrough. And I looked up and there were two bald eagles overhead. And I do live, again, in Maryland, so bald eagles are very common here. We have the highest concentration of bald eagles in the lower 48 because of the bay. So that is not something that's out of the ordinary, but it's also not a daily occurrence whatsoever. And so just standing there and looking up and realizing there were two eagles, I was standing next to my realtor and I was like, oh my God, there's eagles. And he's like, yeah, you're a mile from the nearest tributary river into the bay. Like, yeah, you're going to see eagles. And I'm like, no, I get that. But I couldn't quite explain why I was so flabbergasted that I'm seeing eagles. And so I went and told Eddie, and then he was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. Because I think I had told him I was looking for them. And so, but yeah, the house has been... It was 100% the right decision. But what was interesting is that I didn't get that sign until like the ink was practically dry.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Too late.
it was a done deal, and then the universe was like, yeah, you did good. You made the right decision. I was like, okay, well that was a little longer than I would have liked to take to receive my sign, but I got the sign I was looking for. So you have to be very careful when asking for signs, because sometimes they're not going to show up. They're going to show up how they're going to show up for you. And you just have to keep waiting. And sometimes that can be really uncomfortable, the not knowing and the should I take this step? Should I do this thing? But sometimes you do get that confirmation and it may come late. But that's when you know that whatever you did was really the right thing. So I believe those kinds of things are very real and have the implication to give us information. You know, like I always looked back and I'm like, well, how could people in the Bible get signs? There's doves, there's rainbows, there's countless stories of lots of different signs coming to people in the Bible. And I'm like, well, what, did that just stop or something? Did it just end? Like what happened that people wouldn't be able to do that anymore?
We stopped believing.
And I think some of it is that we stopped being connected and we stopped paying attention. But I have no problem believing. Yeah, I have no problem believing that those things can still happen very now and are still available to us if we're willing to look and if we're being available for the information.
Well, and we've come full circle now. It's really interesting because we got pushed away from believing any of this stuff. We really got pushed away because the science of the time was starting to actually prove that the quantum theories and all of this stuff. And to control a population, you can't allow people to be out there believing in doves and foxes, right? So we need to be grounded. And I think that now there's so much science and there's so much stuff going on that the mystical can't be ignored. And it's funny, your story took a long time to see the eagle. When we were purchasing our property in Mexico and we were in the middle of nowhere, we had no service and we were on our way home and I was lying there and I just kind of went, am I crazy? Like, is this crazy to think that this could actually be real and this could actually happen? And I woke up in the morning, we drove into service, and I had a message on my phone from the realtor that we had an offer on our home. And I wrote back, I changed a couple of things, and literally within an hour of getting service, the house was sold. And that happened in the time between me asking, like, is this real? And then it was like, yeah, here, we'll sell your house for you. And I think that, to me, I took that as a pretty good sign that, yeah, you know what, the timing was just undeniable in my mind. And you can go with logic and you can beat down any of these stories we have. You know, sometimes you listen to your horoscope and it's dead on. But I listened to my horoscope for this month and I was like, that doesn't match. I was actually telling Jenny this, and it was talking about how there might be people that, you know, are not believing in your goals and dreams and telling you not to do what you're doing. And I was like, what's so funny is that I'm the only one. Everybody else in my life is like, cool, amazing, and so supportive of everything I'm doing, no matter how crazy it is. But my relationship with me, that's the one I was like, fascinating. Okay, great. How do I deal with this? I can't stop talking to myself. Maybe I should stop talking to myself.
Yeah.
But
Or listening.
Or listening, right? Exactly. So yeah, I think so much of it needs to be taken lightly, as with everything in life. But signs are important, and there's got to be something special about reaching 111.
Yeah. I think what's special about it is that we made it. Like,
Keep
we've
making
actually made it. And that to me is worth celebrating. And it's just another fun reminder of the little smiles from the universe, the little blessings and the little bit of love that come through. And that's how I look at all of it. Like you said, holding it lightly, I think, is the most important key. Is if something resonates with you, it resonates with you. And it doesn't really matter what anybody else says, you know. And that's part of why I don't like to look up the information online, because a lot of it is conflicting and inconsistent. Yeah. So I'd rather go with my gut, or I go to my books that I know that have been around for quite a long time, that were well researched and really well organized, and that's where I get my information. But if there isn't anything in there, then I'll sit my butt down and meditate and see what comes through. And frequently I get the information that way that's better than whatever was written in a book or online. I sat down one time, actually, it's interesting because it'll be about a year ago now, after Hurricane Helene hit the North Carolina mountains where my family is. And, you know, I was struggling with the amount of destruction that happened in the area and all of the things. And I don't even remember exactly what bird it was, but I heard a bird outside my window, and I just decided that I needed to sit down and just chill for a second. And the message that came through was, this is what we're doing now. And what came out of that was pivot. You just have to pivot in your life. Sometimes life requires a pivot through no control of your own, through nothing of your own that you ever could have done or not done to change the situation, and you just have to pivot. And it was just a really interesting message that, like, I don't even know what kind of bird it was. It was probably just a songbird, cardinal or something like that. And that's just what came through in the moment. And to me, that's a lot more powerful than going and trying to read a book or ask someone else for the information online. The sign is the trigger that there's a message.
Yeah.
And then it's up to me to figure out and listen to find the message.
Totally.
And then as you practice and play with it, you get better and better. But the message that comes through is definitely what's meant for you personally, rather than some pre-written something else by somebody else from Lord knows where.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one for me is the body. I'm very much into what the body tells me. When I've broken both my wrists, like, yeah, I'm a mountain biker, sure, but there's something around that. And when my knee decides to suddenly go out on me while I'm doing squats, I'm like, okay, what is this about? I know that the knee is forward movement. From what I remember, when I did my left side, it was forward motion physically, like moving forward physically. So I think the right side is moving forward in a spiritual sense.
Interesting.
And, you know, trusting that what's going to happen is going to happen. And I wonder, actually, you know what? It was right around the same time as I applied for the job. And I've been told to stop applying for jobs and just trust that I can create this business. There is a need for what I do, and I'm very good at it. So to just jump off that cliff, right? And when I broke my wrists, it was the same thing. It was like I needed to stop and slow down. And it's such a frustrating one when you're like, oh, why this again? Well, it's a good question. What is it trying to tell you? When you've got sicknesses or illnesses that keep coming back, what is going on, right? And yeah. I really do firmly believe that the things that happen to us with our body are very much in sync with things that we are not paying attention to. And that can be spiritually based, or it can be like fully grounded in the reality of life.
Yeah.
But
Well, there is science behind all of that.
yeah.
I mean, there's the ACEs quiz, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences, I think, ACE. And for every point you have, it's a 10-point questionnaire. Every point you have increases your likelihood of developing an autoimmune disorder. And it's because of the emotional impact of situations and trauma that happened in our childhood. And so we can work to free that up and resolve that. That's what all the somatic practices are about. And that's part of why I'm loving the somatic writing practice that Laura Michelle has shared, because it is helping to tap into those things and listen. And what I laugh about is that frequently what I'm writing about is the same damn thing that's coming through from some other message, from some other person or symbol somewhere else. And I'm like, damn it. I guess this means I really need to actually sit down and do whatever the work is around whatever the message is. Because I've had several situations where the messages have come through in multiple different ways. And it's like the universe is going to get louder and louder and louder until you get the message. And often when you get the message, whatever it was, like I said, I stopped seeing foxes. I was seeing 1 to 2 a day for over 2 weeks. I stopped seeing them. That day after I saw the herons and I looked into the message, no more herons for a while. So when you get the message, that frees up whatever it was to move on. And that sometimes often can include the body. And the messages that come through our bodies, that when we finally figure it out and get it, whatever the thing was that was bothering us or ailing us is just gone.
Yeah. So pay attention to the signs. Really just pay attention. Don't just go through life blindly. Pay attention to what's going on, and you might just receive more than you expect. And I think that's really probably the moral of the story today and the key to this conversation. And I think, I don't know, do you have any last words?
I don't think so. This was a fun one. I love talking about this stuff. Like I said, my stories are kind of crazy, so it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I am Natasha Lucky. I am a business builder. Reach out to me if you've got some things that need to be cleaned up. If you're looking to get clients and you just don't know how to get started because the tech stack's just a little bit too much for you. Maybe you need a really simple website. Maybe you just need to hook up to a calendar app of some sort. I can help you with that. If you've got an online course that maybe you've been doing, but it's just not being delivered in the way that you want it to be, or you're wanting to get an idea out to the world, I got you. So meetwithtash.com is the best way to get a hold of me if you want to have a consultation call. It's free, 15 minutes. We'll chat about what you need and see if I can help. And otherwise, you can find me on Betty Go Hard on Instagram and Natasha Lucky on Facebook and LinkedIn. And thank you all so much for being here. We're really appreciating it. I was going to tell Jenny that our 90-day number is closer to 1,000 than it is to 500. So we are on the way to hitting our goals. So thank you guys so much for helping us do that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting. So I am Jenny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. If you are struggling with behavior challenges, emotional challenges, or have some big changes going on in your life, that's a great reason to get connected with your pet to find out what their perspective is and make sure that all the bumps in the road get smoothed out for both of you and you can get back to a more harmonious relationship. You can find me on the web at soulpetconnections.com and on Substack, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under the same handle. So echoing Tosh, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. We love all of your likes, comments, and shares. They mean a lot to us, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have an amazing week.